and trailing only Vietnam in Asia. But with a looming rice import pause, economists are warning of risk ahead. Trump and Putin to talk about Ukraine. The Kremlin confirms President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin will meet in the coming days as Moscow calls a new U.S. offer on Ukraine acceptable. What's on the table? We'll find out later on. Lula and Modi push back. Brazil and India close ranks against U.S. trade pressure, calling the new tariffs unjust and illegal. The BRICS member now pushing for a tougher united stance on global trade. Ghana mourns after helicopter crash. The remains of 8 crash victims, including 2 cabinet ministers, return home to Accra as investigators dig deeper into the deadly military helicopter crash. FBI to chase Texas Dems. U.S. Senator John Cornyn says the FBI will help hunt down Texas Democrats who fled the state in a redistricting showdown. The move, however, sparks new debates on federal authority and legislative power plays. Ceasefire sealed in Kuala Lumpur. Thailand and Cambodia sign a ceasefire deal after deadly border clashes, with ASEAN now set to monitor compliance. A silent emergency in Japan. Japan sees its bigger population drop on record, losing over 900,000 people in a single year. Experts call it a crisis that demands urgent action. And Senator Mark Villar defends his vote to shelve the vice president's impeachment case, citing the Supreme Court's ruling declaring it unconstitutional. I'm Angel Pastor. Newsline World starts now. First in our news, Brazil and India are joining forces to push back against sweeping U.S. tariffs, calling for stronger cooperation and united front against what they call unfair trade pressure. Daniela Paulite for the details.
Facing new tariffs from Washington, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi are drawing closer, warning that unilateral trade moves by the U.S. could threaten global economic stability. Both leaders have spoken by phone, agreeing to strengthen cooperation in response to rising trade pressure from the U.S. The call came just days after Washington imposed heavy new tariffs on both countries, accusing them of threatening American national security and undermining the U.S. dollar. Brazil was hit with a 50% tariff after President Trump criticized the prosecution of former leader Jair Bolsonaro, calling it political persecution. India was targeted over its oil trade with Russia. Both countries have slammed the moves. Brazil called it an illegal attack on its sovereignty. India labeled it unjust and unreasonable. Trump has also warned of further tariffs against BRICS members, the economic bloc including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, accusing them of trying to weaken the dollar. The BRICS group, now larger than the G7 in total GDP, has been a growing target of criticism from Trump, who accuses its members of trying to replace the US dollar as a reserve currency, to which BRICS denies. Lula says he will propose a special BRICS summit to coordinate a joint response to what he calls Washington's trade aggression. Meanwhile, fellow BRICS member China has also spoken out, denouncing the U.S. tariffs on Brazil as unsustainable and voicing strong support for Brazil's efforts to defend its sovereignty and dignity. Beijing warned against what it called unwarranted external interference in Brazil's internal affairs. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to visit China later this month, where he is likely to meet President Xi Jinping. Brazil is the current chair of the BRICS, and Modi will take over from Lula as the chair of the bloc next year. Reporting for Newsline World, Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
The Philippines recorded a 5.5% economic growth in the second quarter of 2025, one of the fastest in Asia, next to Vietnam and higher than China and Indonesia. But with a looming 60-day suspension on rice imports, will it affect the country's economic performance in the coming months? Let's find out in Jason Rubrico's report.
Despite global uncertainties, the Philippine economy continues to hold steady. In the second quarter of 2025, the country posted a 5.5% GDP growth, slightly higher than the 5.4% recorded in the first quarter.
The Philippine economy continues to show resilience and stability, even as global challenges persist and fuel uncertainty across many fronts.
According to the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA, all major economic sectors grew year on year.
Ang mga pangunahing sektor ng ekonomiya na agriculture, forestry and fishing, industry at services ay nagsipagtala ng mga pagtaas na 7%, 2.1% at 6.9% respectively.
Despite the challenges, the Philippines remains among Asia's top-performing economies.
With this performance, we maintain our place among the fastest-growing economies in emerging Asia, behind Vietnam's 8.0% growth, but ahead of China's 5.2% and Indonesia's 5.1%. While our growth is lower than India's projected 6.5% expansion, we're expected to outpace Malaysia's 4.3% and Thailand's 2.4%.
Based on PSA data, in order to reach the high-end growth target of 6.5%, the economy needs to grow by 7.5% in the second half of the year.
7.5 is high, but it's not impossible. If we see continuing, for example, improvement in the confidence of our consumers, and our domestic investors and the economy, we should see a greater growth, a higher growth in both consumption and investment, and in the services.
As for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s order to suspend all rice importations for 60 days starting September 1 this year, Secretary Balisacan believes it will not affect the country's economic performance in the months ahead.
Magkakaroon ng impact yan if that will result in higher prices, retail prices. But as I said, if you look at the numbers, and the availability already of imports ordered in the past, and many of these things are still arriving, we have enough of that supply, and it's also harvest.
However, the Grains Retailers Confederation of the Philippines warns that prices of imported rice could go up by 2 to 3 pesos per kilo if the tariff hike pushes through alongside the import ban. Meanwhile, the Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINAG says that suspending rice imports will not directly benefit local farmers since the tariff rate remains at 15%. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
Vice President Sara Duterte has reiterated her call for a bloodbath, a full representation or presentation of evidence from both sides in the impeachment proceedings against her. But with the case now archived, she said the possibility of another impeachment complaint in the coming years must be anticipated. Jason Rubrico files this report.
19 senators voted in favor of archiving the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte. 4 voted against it while 1 abstained. The move follows the Supreme Court's ruling that the transmittal of the articles of impeachment to the Senate was premature. The Vice President, reacting to the outcome, said the Senate's decision must be respected.
Yes, kinahanglan nato respetuhon ang role sa ato ang Senate of the Philippines dinhi sa ato ang nasod ug sa ato ang demokrasya. So kung mauna ang decision sa majority sa members of the Senate, everyone must follow and respect that decision of the Senate.
Vice President Duterte also responded to Senator Alan Peter Cayetano's earlier remark, challenging her critics to run against her in 2028 if she chooses to seek the presidency. The Vice President said every senator is entitled to their own views.
Ang katuang mga senators na sila kaugalingon po nila na mga stand and opinion, and we should respect each manifestation and stand sa ato ang mga senators.
VP Sara again underscored her desire for a bloodbath, a chance for all prosecution and defense evidence to be laid out before the public. Now that the case is archived, she says the possibility of new impeachment complaints must be anticipated.
I wanted a bloodbath, meaning I wanted all the pieces of evidence from the prosecution and all the pieces of evidence from the defense presented for everyone. But unfortunately, wala na siya sa pagkakaroon. And of course, as I said, kinahanglan pangandaman ang tanan nga posibleng mahitabo. So possibly, wala ta kibalo, 2026, 2027, 2028, na ay mga mag-file na po og impeachment, that will be another opportunity to answer.
Meanwhile, former President Rodrigo Duterte, who was among the petitioners in the Supreme Court case, welcomed the ruling.
And he was truly very happy noong na tinawagan siya ng kanyang lawyer at ibinalita sa kanya na nanalo siya sa Supreme Court case. Kasi isa siya sa mga lawyers ko doon sa Supreme Court, at binalita sa kanya na sinabi niya sa kanyang lawyer na mag-relax daw siya for one day. Hindi daw siya mag-meetings at hindi siya mag-physical therapy dahil gusto niya daw i-enjoy yung moment na nanalo yung kaso sa Supreme Court.
Amid ongoing political tensions, Vice President Duterte assured the public that the office of the Vice President remains focused on its mandate. She emphasized that even with a reduced budget, their public service continues. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
Senator Mark Villar is standing by the Constitution, explaining why he voted against proceeding with the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. His decision comes after the Supreme Court ruled the case unconstitutional. Here's Sara Santos for the full story.
On the Senate floor, Senator Mark Villar made it clear the rule of law must prevail. He backed the Supreme Court's unanimous decision junking the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte, a ruling that called the articles of impeachment unconstitutional for violating the one-year rule and due process.
Kung susuway tayo sa desisyon ng Supreme Court sa isang isyung konstitusyonal, binabaliwala natin ang konstitusyon.
Villar pointed to Article 8, Section 1 of the Constitution, which gives the Supreme Court power to check grave abuse of discretion by any branch of government, even the Senate sitting as an impeachment court. He warned that ignoring the ruling would trigger a constitutional crisis, shaking the country's democratic foundations. Villar also reminded his fellow lawmakers of their oath of office, their duty to obey lawful orders and uphold the Constitution. He quoted Senior Associate Justice Marvic Leonen, who authored the High Court's ruling, saying there is a right way to do the right thing at the right time. This is what the rule of just law means. In the end, Villar said his vote wasn't about weakening the Senate's independence, but standing firm for legal due process and constitutional order. For God and my beloved Philippines, Sara Santos, SMNI News.
Breaking news, Israel's security cabinet has approved a plan for its military to take control of Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office says that the Israel's Defense Forces, or IDF, will begin preparations to seize Gaza City while working to provide humanitarian aid to civilians outside combat zones. The decision was made after most ministers agreed that a proposed alternative would fall short or defeating Hamas or securing the release of hostages. The Security Cabinet adopted 5 principles for concluding the war, and these are the disarming of Hamas, the return of all the hostages, the living and the deceased, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control in the Gaza Strip, the establishment of an alternative civil administration that is neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. Israel's decision comes after Netanyahu, in a Fox News interview, said Israel had intended to take military control of Gaza and handed over Arab forces to govern. The announcement comes just hours after a stark warning from the United Nations, which said an expanded Israeli military campaign could lead to catastrophic consequences for both Palestinian civilians and the remaining Israeli hostages. Netanyahu's government continues to face intense pressure, both internationally and at home, to end the war and allow more aid into Gaza. The war erupted after Hamas' deadly October 7 attack, which killed around 1,200 people and saw 251 hostages taken. Since then, Israel's military offensive has left at least 61,000 Palestinians dead, according to the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza. Coming up, Ghana mourns after helicopter crash. The remains of 8 crash victims, including 2 cabinet ministers, return home to Accra as investigators dig deeper into the deadly military helicopter crash. And the FBI to chase Texas Dems, U.S. Senator John Cornyn says the FBI will help hunt down Texas Democrats who fled the state in a redistricting showdown. The move, however, sparks new debates on federal authority and legislative power plays. Newsline World will be back after the break.
Matunog ngayon ang salitang impeachment sa Pilipinas dahil sa nakambang impeachment trial kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Pero ang tanong ng taong bayan, ito ba ay para sa interes ng bansa o para sa politikal na motibo lamang? Sa ilalim ng saligang batas, may mga opisyal ng pamahalaan na maaring tanggalin sa pwesto sa pamamagitan ng impeachment. Kabilang dito ang Pangulo, Pangalawang Pangulo, mga mahistrado ng Korte Suprema, mga miyembro ng Constitutional Commission at ang Ombudsman. Maaaring ma-impeach ang mga nabanggit na opisyal dahil sa matinding paglabag sa konstitusyon, pagtataksil sa bayan, panunuhol, katiwalian, mabibigat na krimen o pagtataksil sa tiwala ng publiko. Sa kasaysayan ng Pilipinas, ilang matataas na opisyal na ang humarap sa impeachment trial. Noong taong 2000, si Pangulong Joseph Erap Estrada ang unang Pangulo ng bansa na humarap sa isang impeachment trial. Taong 2011 naman, si Ombudsman Mercedes Gutierrez ay naharap din sa impeachment dahil sa umano'y kapabayaan sa pag-aksyon sa mga kaso ng katiwalian. Hindi na siya humarap sa pagdinig sapagkat bago pa magsimula ang impeachment trial ay nagbitiw na ito sa pwesto. Noong 2012, si Chief Justice Renato Corona ay napatalsik naman mula sa Korte Suprema sa unang pagkakataon na impeach ang isang Chief Justice matapos mapatunayang hindi niya idineklara ang kanyang Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth o SALN ng buo. Ano nga ba ang proseso ng pag-impeach sa isang mataas na opisyal batay sa konstitusyon? Maaaring magsampa ng reklamo ang isang miyembro ng Kongreso o isang mamamayan basta may sumusuportang kongresista. Kapag 1/3 ng mga miyembro ng Kamara ang sumang-ayon, tuloy na agad ang proseso ng impeachment sa Senado. Sa sandaling maaprubahan ito ng House of Representatives, binubuo na ang Articles of Impeachment, isang dokumento na naglalaman ng mga aligasyon o batayan para sa impeachment. Pero tandaan, walang impeachment proceedings na maaaring isampa laban sa parehong opisyal ng higit sa isang beses sa loob ng isang taon. Ang Senado naman ang magsisilbing impeachment court kapag ang Pangulo ang nililitis, ang punong mahistrado ang namumuno, ngunit hindi bumoboto. 2/3 ng mga senador ang kailangan para hatulan ang opisyal. Anong parusa? Pagkakatanggal sa pwesto at diskwalipikasyon na makabalik sa gobyerno. Ang impeachment ay hindi simpleng usapin sa politika. Isa itong seryosong proseso na maaaring makaapekto sa kinabukasan ng bansa. Kaya sa panahong puno ng ingay at intriga, kinakailangan nating maging mapanuri, patas, at maging makabayan. Bantayan natin ang katotohanan, pumanig tayo sa hustisya, at higit sa lahat, unahin natin ang interes ng sambayanang Pilipino.
Children will grow up and bring the joy, the love, the peace, and compassion to the whole world. We only have one planet. We only have one Earth. And I hope that this new generation of children that we have reached out will become millions and billions and bring peace on Earth. Bring peace to humanity.
Agosto na, panahon na para ipagdiwang ang ating pagkakakilanlan bilang Pilipino. Ang buwan ng wika ay nagsimula bilang linggo ng wika, alinsunod sa Proclamation No. 35 ni dating Pangulong Sergio Osmeña. Ginugunita ito noon tuwing ika-27 ng Marso hanggang ikalawang araw ng Abril, kasabay ng kaarawan ni Francisco Balagtas, isa sa mga kinikilalang dakilang Pilipino sa panitikan. Pero noong 1997, pinalawak ito ni Pangulong Fidel Ramos at ginawang buwan ng Agosto sa bisa ng Proclamation No. 1041. Layunin ng selebrasyon na bigyang pansin at buhayin ang higit 180 katutubong wika sa Pilipinas, isang kayamanang dapat nating ingatan. Marami ang nagkakamali. Magkaiba ang Tagalog at Filipino. Ang Filipino ang opisyal na wika ng buong bansa, habang ang Tagalog ay isa lamang sa mga pangunahing wika. Alam niyo ba, may 8 pangunahing dialekto sa Pilipinas: Tagalog, Ilocano, Kapampangan, Pangasinense, Waray, Bicolano, Cebuano at Hiligaynon. Ang ating wika ay ating pagkakakilanlan, kaya't nararapat lamang itong pagyamanin, gamitin at ipagmalaki. Sabi nga ng ating pambansang bayani na si Jose Rizal, ang hindi magmahal sa sariling wika, daig pa ang hayop at malansang isda. Gamitin, mahalin at ipagmalaki natin ang ating sariling wika.
We're back. Ghana is mourning the loss of 8 people, including 2 senior cabinet ministers, after a military helicopter crash. And now the remains of the victims have now been brought to Accra as investigations into the tragedy continue. Virgil Parba reports.
The remains of Ghana's Defense Minister Edward Omani Buhama and 7 others killed in a military helicopter crash have arrived in Accra, marking one of the country's most significant losses in recent years. The victims, who also include Environment, Science and Technology Minister Ibrahim Mortala Mohamed, 3 senior government officials, and 3 Air Force crew members. were on board a military Z-9 helicopter when it lost radar contact and went down during a routine flight over central Ghana's Adansi-Akrafom district. A government delegation led by Chief of Staff Julius Debra received the coffins draped in the national flag at the Air Force Base on Wednesday night. A solemn prayer ceremony was held before the remains were taken to the 37 military hospital's morgue for preservation. The Ghana Armed Forces said search and rescue teams were deployed immediately after the crash, but no survivors were found. The cause remains under investigation, with officials considering mechanical failure among several possibilities. President John Dramani Mahama has declared 3 days of national mourning, ordering flags to be flown at half-mast and pledging full state support for the victims' families. This is Virgil Parba, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
In the United States, we have a redistricting standoff that's now spilling beyond Texas borders, raising questions about federal overreach, state authority, and the limits of legislative protest. Now, one senator is calling for bold action to bring lawmakers back to the table. Valdivina Gracia tells us more.
The political standoff in Texas intensified this week after Senator John Cornyn confirmed that a federal Bureau of Investigation will assist in locating Democratic lawmakers who left the state to block voting legislation. The move follows days of mounting pressure from Republican officials who have accused the absent lawmakers of derailing the democratic process. Dozens of Democrats left Texas in a coordinated effort to break quorum and prevent the passage of a controversial election reform bill that opponents claim would suppress voters' access. Cornyn's announcement comes on the heels of U.S. President Donald Trump's own comments earlier this week, in which he also suggested that federal authorities, including the FBI, may be called in to help track down the legislators. While the Texas Constitution allows for the arrest of lawmakers who refuse to attend sessions, enforcing that power across state lines raises legal and jurisdictional questions. The involvement of the FBI, typically reserved for federal matters, marks a dramatic escalation in the dispute. As of Friday, the Democratic lawmakers remain out of state, vowing not to return until the special legislative session ends. Their continued absence has brought legislative business in the Texas House to a standstill. The FBI has yet to issue a formal statement on the scope or timeline of its involvement. Critics of the decision warn that using federal law enforcement to pursue political opponents could set a troubling precedent. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Valdivina Gracia, SMNA News.
Hungary's record-breaking heat wave is doing more than breaking temperature record. It's pushing career changes too. As temperatures soar, air conditioning is no longer seen as a luxury but a necessity in the country. Affordable systems, many imported from China, are flying off shelves. That's led to a rush not only for cooling units but also for trained hands to install them. That shortage has sparked a wave of career changes, with professionals from all walks of life, from musicians to office workers, retraining as HVAC specialists. In Budapest, some crews are working non-stop, booked months in advance. In just 3 months, trainees are getting certified and training centers are now full, and the job's appeal is clear: short certification times and competitive pay. Hungary's heat wave may be seasonal, but the demand for AC and those who can install it looks like it's here to stay. Japan's population continues to shrink, and this year, the drop is the biggest ever recorded. Here's Joy Tabanal with the latest from the government's newly released data.
Japan's population is shrinking faster than ever. New government data shows that the number of Japanese citizens dropped by more than 900,000 last year, a record decline. According to the Basic Resident Register, as of January 1, 2025, Japan's population of nationals now stands at 120.6 million. This is the sharpest fall since the government began tracking these figures in 1968. At the same time, Japan's foreign population has reached a new high, 3.6 million, rising by over 350,000. Despite that increase, the overall population still declined by more than 500,000, bringing the total number of residents to just 124.3 million. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba recently reiterated Japan's aging population as a silent emergency, pledging family-friendly policies such as free childcare and more flexible work hours. Experts warn that Japan's aging society and declining birth rate remain major challenges for the country's future. Joy Tabanao, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Egypt is ramping up efforts to deliver food and supplies into Gaza, where a tightening blockade is worsening a deepening humanitarian crisis. Fatima Nauzil for the details.
Egypt says it's trying to push through one of its biggest aid convoys yet, with 1.5 billion tons of food and supplies bound for Gaza. The country's 11th humanitarian campaign comes as Palestinians in the enclave face soaring hunger, shortages, and malnutrition following months of blockade since the war began last October. The trucks, part of a joint effort between the Egyptian government and civil society groups, are currently stalled due to restrictions at Gaza's crossings. While the Rafah border with Egypt is open for passengers, trucks carrying aid are being redirected to the Israeli-controlled Kerem Shalom crossing, where many have been turned back. Still, Egyptian officials say they won't stop trying. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi recently accused Israel of waging what he called a war of starvation and has backed both ground convoys and airdrops into Gaza. Despite ongoing challenges, Egypt says it remains committed to helping Gaza civilians and will continue to press for aid to get through. Reporting, this has been Fatima Nauzil, SMNI News.
After days of relentless rain and widespread flooding, Manila is now bracing for another threat, leptospirosis. Mayor Isko Moreno has ordered an emergency health response across all 6 city-run hospitals. The city is on surge protocol with floodwaters still receding. The risk of leptospirosis, a deadly waterborne disease, has skyrocketed. To stay ahead of a potential outbreak, Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso has activated leptospirosis fast lanes at the emergency rooms of all 6 city hospitals: Ospital ng Maynila, Ospital ng Sampaloc, Ospital ng Tondo, Ospital ng Santa Ana, gov't Andres Bonifacio Memorial Medical Center, and Justice Abad Santos General Hospital. These lanes are designed to quickly triage, test, and treat patients showing symptoms without delays. City Health Officer Dr. Grace Padilla has been tasked with ensuring all hospitals are prepared. That means dedicated beds, special isolation wards, and ready supplies of key medications like doxycycline. Dialysis units are also on full alert with orders to remain fully operational for severe cases. Mayor Moreno says this is about acting fast to save lives before infections surge out of control. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. concluded his state visit to India with 18 business agreements across key sectors sealed. President Catarong for the rest of the details.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. witnessed the ceremonial presentation of 18 new business agreements between companies from the Philippines and India, signaling a major step forward in bilateral economic cooperation focused on innovation-driven growth. The agreements were unveiled during the Philippine-India Business Forum held at the Taj West End Hotel in Bengaluru as part of President Marcos' 5-day state visit to India. Department of Trade and Industry Secretary Cristina Roque emphasized that the deals are concrete results of deepening ties between the two nations.
These agreements cover a wide range of strategic sectors, including renewable energy, infrastructure, healthcare, education, information technology and business process management, digital services, and manufacturing.
The deals, comprising Memoranda of Understanding or MOUs and Letters of Intent, highlight India's rising interest in the Philippine market, attracted by the country's strategic location, skilled workforce, and favorable investment environment. A standout agreement involves the joint development of a waste-to-energy facility, showcasing cooperation in clean energy and infrastructure. The information technology and business process management sector played a key role, with several letters of intent focusing on the establishment of digital academies and the expansion of healthcare outsourcing, business process services, and AI training initiatives. Other agreements include projects for telecom tower construction, precision sheet metal manufacturing, and a copper smelting and refining partnership. MOUs were also signed covering digital finance, commercial real estate development, and eco-friendly logistics. Additional letters of intent support plans to expand dialysis centers, clinical outsourcing services, and ventures into fuel cell technologies. The event wrapped up with a pledge to enhance digital collaboration between Philippine and Indian tech firms. For God and for my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Carceling Catarong, SMNI News.
Up next, Trump and Putin to talk about Ukraine. The Kremlin confirms President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin will meet in the coming days as Moscow calls a new U.S. offer on Ukraine acceptable. What's on the table? We'll find out later on. And for our sports news, a trade buzz in the NBA. Could Trae Young be headed to Phoenix? Rumors are swirling that the Suns may tap the Hawks guard as a blockbuster trade for Kevin Durant, a move that could shake up the NBA. Stay tuned, Newsline World will be back.
Isang digmaan na parang pelikula. Missiles, drones, at bunker-busting bombs. Pero ang epekto, totohanan. Daan-daang patay, wasak na infrastruktura, at nagmahal ang presyo ng langis na nakaapekto sa pandaigdigang merkado. Ito ang tinaguriang 12-day war o 12 araw na gyera sa pagitan ng Iran at Israel. Isang gyerang nagbago sa takbo ng politika, ekonomiya at seguridad, hindi lang sa Middle East kundi sa buong mundo. Hunyo 13, 2025, binomba ng Israel ang Iran para pigilan ang umano'y pagbuo ng nuclear weapons. Gumanti ang Iran. Libu-libong missiles at drones ang pinakawalan na ikinamatay ng 28 sa Israel. Sa loob ng 12 araw, kaliwat kanang opensiba ang inilunsad ng magkabilang panig. Hunyo 22, sumali na ang Amerika. 3 nuclear sites sa Iran ang binomba gamit ang B-2 stealth bombers sa Isfahan, Fordo at Natanz. Sabi ng US, layo nitong hadlangan ang nuclear program ng Iran. Pero para sa Tehran, ito raw ay pagtalikod sa diplomasya. Hunyo 24, inanunsyo ni US President Donald Trump ang ceasefire sa pagitan ng Israel at Iran. Pero ilang oras pa lang, muling nagkagirian. May ulat ng missile strike ng Iran na itinanggi nito kaya gumanti ang Israel. Sa huli, tumigil din ang putukan. Parehong panig, nagdeklara ng tagumpay. Parehas ding nagturuan kung sino nga ba ang lumabag sa ceasefire. Ngunit para kay Trump, pareho lang lumabag ang dalawang panig. Bandang gabi ng Hunyo 24, tumalab na rin sa wakas ang ceasefire. Ngunit habang pansamantalang natahimik ang putukan, nananatiling mainit ang mga tanong. May saysay pa ba ang diplomatikong kasunduan kung nauuna pa rin ang dahas? Marami ang umaasang ang tigil putukan ay simula ng mas mahinahong diskusyon. Pero ang duda, nananatili. Sa Israel, nagtago ang mga sibilyan sa mga bomb shelter. Habang sa Iran, maraming taga-Tehran ang napilitang umalis sa kanilang mga tahanan patungong Turkey at Armenia para makaligtas sa gulo. Sa Iran, ayon sa health ministry nila, 610 na ang patay, 4,746 ang sugatan. Sa Israel, 28 ang nasawi, ayon sa Army Radio. Marami rin sa military commander at scientist ng Iran ang nasawi. Sa Israel, umabot sa $8.7 bilyong ang kabuang gasto sa digmaan. Katumbas ito ng halos $725 milyong kada araw sa loob ng 12 araw, habang ang Iran nahirapang makabangon dahil sa nasirang pasilidad. Matapos ang deklarasyon ng ceasefire, nakatutok na ulit ang puwersa ng Israel sa Gaza. Ang Iran, walang plano na agad makipagnegosasyon sa Estados Unidos. Bagaman sinuspindi rin nito ang muling pakikipagnegosasyon sa US patungkol sa kanilang nuclear program, bukas pa rin ang pinto ng diplomasya. Tuloy pa rin ang nuclear program ng Iran na iginiit nilang para sa mapayapang layunin. Gate pa nila, lalo pa raw paiitingin ang pagsulong nito sa gitna ng tensyon. Sa kasagsagan ng tensyon, nagbanta ang Iran na isasara ang Strait of Hormuz, isang makitid na lagusan kung saan dumadaan ang halos 20% ng langis sa buong mundo. Bagamat hindi pa ito isinara, nagdulot na ng panik ang banta ng Iran. Tumaas ang presyo ng langis. Umabot sa $78 kada barrels ang crudo. Damang-dama ng buong mundo ang epekto ng digmaan. Ang pandaigdigang merkado nataranta. Sa kasagsagan ng gyera, bumagsak ng 2% ang US S&P 500 at tumaas ng 30% ang gastos sa maritime insurance, nagpabigat sa kalakalan sa Asya. Sa Pilipinas, na umaas sa imported na langis, lalong tumaas ang presyo ng gasolina, LPG at bilihin na nagpalala sa inflation. Ang mga Pinoy na nasa Middle East na nais bumalik sa Pilipinas dahil sa takot, nahirapan makauwi. Kapag tumataas ang presyo ng langis, sumasabay din ang gasto sa produksyon ng mga bilihin, kaya't ramdam ang epekto nito hindi lang sa petrolyo, kundi sa buong ekonomiya. May panukalang fuel subsidy para sa mga PUV. Pero sapat kaya ito? Isa itong paalala na kahit malayo ang labanan, ramdam.
Tensions between Cambodia and Thailand may finally be easing after both countries signed a formal ceasefire deal in Malaysia. It comes the wake of deadly border clashes just 2 weeks ago. Lester Tan has the latest.
A major step toward peace. Cambodia and Thailand have now formalized their ceasefire, signing an agreement during a General Border Committee meeting in Kuala Lumpur. The talks brought together top defense officials from both sides, with delegates from China, Malaysia, and the US observing the high-stakes negotiations. In a joint statement, the two nations agreed to stop all use of weapons, avoid unprovoked attacks, and freeze troop movements along the border, keeping positions as they were when the ceasefire took effect on July 28. They also pledged humane treatment for captured soldiers, in line with international law. To make sure the truce holds, both countries are welcoming an ASEAN-led observer mission, with Malaysia taking the lead. In the meantime, military attachés from ASEAN states will serve as temporary monitors. The agreement also lays out next steps: direct military-to-military communication, a regional meeting in 2 weeks, and another General Border Committee session within a month. Emergency talks will be called if needed. Cambodia's Defense Minister Trae Young says his country is committed to peace, while Thailand's acting defense chief called the meeting crucial to maintaining its stability. Malaysia, meanwhile, praised both sides for upholding ASEAN values. This comes after deadly clashes erupted along the border on the 24th of July. A truce was brokered days later, now reinforced by this formal deal. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Lester Tan, SMNI News.
A big boost for Australia's healthcare. More families can now skip the longer waits thanks to a growing network of Medicare urgent care clinics rolling out across the country. Justine Nazario for the details.
The Australian government has reached a major milestone in its plan to expand Medicare urgent care clinics, with 90 now operating across the country. As part of its commitment to open 50 more clinics nationwide, 3 new sites have just opened in Victoria, in Warrnambool, Sunshine, and Warragul, after transitioning from state-funded urgent care services. The clinics provide free walk-in care with extended hours, 7 days a week, and are fully bulk billed. Since the first Medicare urgent care clinics opened in June 2023, more than 1.7 million visits have been recorded, including over 360,000 in Victoria. More than half of these visits occurred outside standard business hours, with more than 1 in 4 for children under 15. Health Minister Mark Butler said the clinics are reducing hospital pressure and giving Australians faster access to care. 9 more medical urgent care clinics are set to open across Victoria in 2025 to 2026 as part of the ongoing national rollout. Justin Azario, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
For our good news, as the world celebrates International Cat Day, one shelter story is warming hearts everywhere. A tale of 2 kitten brothers who simply couldn't bear to be apart. When a man visited the shelter intending to adopt just 1 kitten, the pair clung to each other as if silently pleading to "Don't leave me without my brother." Staff say the tiny siblings even cried when separated. The black kitten wrapped himself around his brother, refusing to let go. Moved by the moment, the man decided to take them both home. Their bond was so strong that shelter workers knew they were meant to stay side by side, a perfect reminder on International Cat Day of the deep connections animals share. Because of these kittens, home wasn't just a place, it was being together, and now they'll never have to spend a day apart. And now, a farewell to a beloved figure in the music world and a surprising new chapter for a former Superman. From heartbreak to headline-making turns, here's what's making showbiz news. Sigrid Castañeda for the latest updates.
Music manager Brandon Blockstock, former husband of Kelly Clarkson, has passed away after a 3-year battle with cancer. A family rep says he died peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. He was 48. Clarkson has postponed her Vegas shows to be with their children, River and Remington. Blockstock also had 2 older children and became a grandfather in 2022. The son of music exec Narvel Blockstock and former stepson of Reba McEntire, Brandon managed top names like Blake Shelton and once Clarkson herself. He's remembered as a devoted father and respected figure in music world. Meanwhile, from Superman to ICE agent, actor Dean Cain says he's joining Immigration and Customs Enforcement as soon as possible. The Lewis and Clark star, already a certified police officer, made the announcement on Fox News backing former President Trump's deportation plan. Cain also posted a recruitment video on X urging others to apply.
Hey everybody, Dean Cain here. And for those who don't know, I am a sworn law enforcement officer as well as being a filmmaker. I felt it was important to join with our first responders to help secure the safety of all Americans, not just talk about it. So I joined up. And here's your opportunity to join ICE. You can earn lots of great benefits and pay. Yet since President Trump took office, ICE has arrested hundreds of thousands of criminals, including terrorists, rapists, murderers, pedophiles, MS-13 gang members, drug traffickers, you name it, very dangerous people who are no longer on the streets. You can defend your homeland and get great benefits like a $50,000 signing bonus. Think about that. Student loan repayment legally. Enhanced retirement benefits and special pay for those in the field operations and law enforcement roles. I don't get that special pay, but you also don't need an undergraduate degree. You can get to work right away. So if you want to help save America, ICE is arresting the worst of the worst and removing them from America's streets. I like that. I voted for that. They need your help. We need your help to protect our homeland and our families. So check into it, as I said, and join today if it's something that tickles your fancy, because we can use you.
ICE is in the middle of a major hiring push, offering big bonuses and benefits. Cain says he's in talks with the agency and expects to be sworn in soon. This is Sigrid Castañeda, your citizen correspondent, bringing you latest showbiz.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the sun. Nobody can stop me from preaching the core message of the Son and the laws written in our hearts, and the supreme law of the kingdom, which is love. No hate, but love. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Angel Pastor. Thank you for watching and goodbye.